Okay, well, welcome to this session, everybody. My name is Loïc Avenel. I'm one of the product manager on CloudForms and OpenShift here. And I have with me Itamar Haim and Federico Simoncelli, who are from the engineering team. So they are the people who are making my dreams happening all the day, most of the time here. I'm deciding as a product manager what should be next in the product here based on the customer interaction I have at this Red Hat Summit most of the time here. And they make it happening. So I'm very pleased to have them with me today to do this kind of presentation here. So agenda is going to be very classic here. I'm going to talk about Red Hat management very quickly. We are going to talk about managing container at scale and what does that mean for us in Red Hat here. Then we are going to focus on automation very slowly, very quickly, sorry, because it's not the main part of what we want to do today. We want to talk mainly about CloudForms, but automation with Ansible is part of the story. So we are going to have a quick picture on that here. Then we are going to go through the existing feature of the products that we have today to managing container at scale, meaning OpenShift here. And then we are going to go through the roadmap here. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming here. We are working very hard with our own internal team inside Red Hat who are managing OpenShift. We are learning from them, and we are making a good product knowledge base that we can share with our customers later here. And then Federico is going to do a demonstration here, so I can talk about the best thing on the planet, but I want to show you what does that mean in real. It's going to be a real live demo. We like risk here. Okay, so the Red Hat management portfolio is about 4 solutions today. So I think we had a lot of sessions around all these solutions here. Satellite is a traditional one to manage, the Red Hat content here and patches and stuff like that. The lifecycle of Red Hat Enterprise Linux here, which is a pretty old and well-known product in the Red Hat portfolio here. We have also Insight, which is a new offering, which has been kind of introduced sometime a few years ago, where it's about all knowledge information that we learn from our customers that we can share and proactively tell you you are going to have a problem and help you to fix it here. And for Red Hat management, the 2 important products we are going to talk today is about Ansible automation. I think it's pretty well known. We have so many sessions this year about it here. And CloudForms on top of OpenShift. What does that mean? What can we do here? So managing container at scale, we think about it and say what we should talk about for this session here. So we think that the first thing is that when you have a lot of OpenShift clusters, a lot of projects running, a lot of containers, a lot of images built every day, what do we need to put in place to manage this environment here? It can be a simple and very large environment. It can be multiple environment, multiple OpenShift cluster here. Or can I get one single way to manage all these things together here? So automation is obviously part of the discussion. When you have a couple of engineers working on a very small environment, it's easy to see every day what's happening on the screen. It's easy to have people behind the console and trying to do and test and see how to manage that here. But when you're starting to talk about, 1,000 applications, you are talking about, 50, 100, OpenShift nodes, or you have, 5, 6 different OpenShift cluster environments that you have to manage and go through. You cannot do it manually anymore. You need to put some automation in place here. Also, what you need to do is to have a one central view here. You cannot connect to 5 different consoles every time to do and analyze what's happening. You want to see upfront in one UI what's happening across all these different environments, all this complexity you have in front of you here. So you need a central UI. You need a very nice dashboard where you can immediately see what's happening there. And you need the possibility to understand not only the container management stack, but what is supporting it underneath here. I'm running my OpenShift cluster in Amazon. I'm running it in OpenStack here, in Rave, so I need to be able to understand the different layer in front of me to be able to operate it. So on the inventory side, nobody can manage anything without to know what you have. So we need to understand what exactly is running, in the OpenShift world, in the container management world. Container has their own life here. The number of pods can be completely dynamic here. So it's not like, hey, I know what's happening. Every day, every minute, something can change here. So you need to have a kind of very nice inventory information in front of you that you can drill down to go in the details here. This is my project. So how many images are used in my project? So it's important to know which kind of image is that. Is it secure images here? So you need to have all this information in front of you to run reports, to be able maybe to do chargeback if you need to, because it's very important sometimes for company to produce a chargeback report for billing customers here. And then you need to have some security scan. And we're going to talk about OpenSCAP in a few minutes here. And finally, you want to have some monitoring here. Monitoring means I know exactly how this particular project is performing today. CPU, memory, networking related here. I need to understand how this particular container is running, how my OpenShift is, how many CPU memory are consumed today on my OpenShift, how many pods were created last week here on this particular OpenShift cluster here. And finally, one thing you can do too, which can be related to automation, is a central policy. So any environment is running and producing events. From this event, you can react. Okay, if a pod keeps recycling, you want to know what's happening there. So maybe what you want to do as a policy is to notify someone by email, hey, you should look at your project, you have something wrong here, because we have a pod that is rescheduling every 5 minutes here. We need to look into that. Your application is crashing maybe. So there's a lot of things that we can set in the central policy of a solution like CloudForm to automate some actions on things happening here. Again, small environment, you can have someone behind it, see the events and try to understand what's happening. A very large environment, a lot of OpenShift cluster, a lot of projects to monitor. You need to put some automation and policy in place here. So on the automation side, we are talking obviously about Ansible. So Ansible today is already used inside OpenShift. When you install an OpenShift cluster, you are using Ansible underneath here. It's used to the installation, and you can use it for upgrade. Okay, and you have the possibility via Ansible to have some hooks where you can do some additional detailed configuration of your environment here. Now, part of the installation of OpenShift, you can install logging, you can install metrics, and you can install registry console components. This is again using Ansible here. And we are going to extend that in the future, and we're going to talk about it during the roadmap presentation, or we can use also Ansible to deploy CloudForms directly inside OpenShift to be one of the components of OpenShift here. And you will be able to do scale out, and of course we are going to look at scale out and scale down here. That's some of the things we are working on here, and some of the certificate management. I'm not going to spend more time on Ansible part here. We have a lot of sessions this week who are focusing on Ansible, where they are talking about Ansible and container management also, or Ansible and provisioning container itself here. But this session is going to focus now on CloudForms. Okay, so let's go through all capabilities of CloudForms one by one, and what does that mean in a container management world here. We are talking about centralized inventory and monitoring most of the time here. So, CloudForms can help you to monitor, to set policies to inventory, run reporting, and to have a unified view of your hybrid management here. Most of the customers, they will run OpenShift on one type of environment, but you may have this different environment. A classic one is you can run OpenShift on your existing virtualization infrastructure, VMware, Hyper-V or Red Hat virtualization. But also, you can run it on OpenStack because now you are starting to use OpenStack in your private cloud era here. And then some group in your organization may run OpenShift on the top of Amazon. That's not an issue for CloudForms. We can connect to all the different OpenShift clusters across all these different technology and get one place, one UI, one solution to view it, to monitor it, to run reports about it, and in the future to run operations here. So this is another view of that. So you can see in this particular example here, Red Hat Platform can be connected to VMware infrastructure and report inventory about it, but also to the OpenShift running on it. And part of the story, we can show you that your particular OpenShift environment is running on this particular VMware. And if we click on the VMware, we can tell you about what is the IP address, how much is VMware is performing, where is running, etc. We can do the same thing for Rev, as you can see here on the screen here. And we can do the same thing on Amazon, obviously. Now, one thing we are going to provide in the future, we are nearly there now. It's still in a tech preview mode, and you can play with it if you want. Tech preview for Red Hat means you can install and play with it, but we are not supporting it in production. Be aware about that. So in this particular example here, you may have OpenShift running on top of OpenStack and the Red Hat JBoss middleware running inside OpenShift, on the top of OpenShift. And CloudForm is capable to connect to these 3 different layers and represent that for you in a very nice topology view. So you will understand very well how these things are interrelated here. And then you can operate and manage them differently, but it's always in mind that they are all related and linked together. How many times you have different teams? We take question at the end. How many times you have different teams working on a different aspect of your solutions and they don't know what things are happening here? CloudForm can be one single pane of glass where you see all these things working together. So this is a very nice dashboard we have today. You click on this dashboard. in my example here, you have only one provider. A provider is one OpenShift cluster, but if you have 5 of them, it's going to be an aggregation of all this information in one look. I know exactly how is my environment going here. I know how many CPU and memory has been used, and you see with the heat map here, which is very nice, you can see you have one node which is running hot. Is a slide here, but if in a real example, if I in a running environment, if I put my mouse over, I'm going to have the node, the name of the node, then I can go and look what's happening there. Okay, and you have a summary about what you have, how many nodes you have in total in your environments, how many containers I have, how many projects I have right now, and all the information are clickable. Okay, so you can click on it and get the list of the information. So you can answer very quickly how many pods are running, how many images I do have in my environment, and you will find out that images are growing very fast here. If you continuously create a new build, if you are in a CDCI environment, you see images are growing very fast here. So that's something you want to know what's happening and monitor. You know exactly how many routes you have in your environment. So again, something you can click and go and get more information from. And we have what we call, trending. Okay, so you have the network trending, you have the new image trending, and you have the pods trending. So for the last 30 days, you can look exactly what's happening in your environment. All right, so you know exactly, but you can also use reports for run the same kind of information and then keep a history about all these reports and compare week to week what was happening in your environment and keep a memory from that. So we talk about topology view is another view of your environment. So you can do some very nice drawing here. It's like a big flower. So basically in the center, you have your OpenShift cluster. So I'm looking at only one OpenShift cluster right now. The previous screen here, it can be more than one aggregated. In this case, I'm looking at only one guy, okay, one OpenShift cluster. So all this information, they are searchable. I have you don't see on the screen here, but I have a search bar where I can type, I'm looking for a specific container. And when it's going to show me the containers, then I can see exactly what is related around it. Which node, which project is inside, is related to this particular container. All this information, they are directly clickable. So for example, if you see on the right side here, I got red guys. This container are red. There's something happening there. I can simply double click on it. It's going to be, then I'm going to open the detailed view, and I'm going to see what's happening there. Maybe they are terminated. Maybe that's been rescheduled multiple times. Something's happening there. I can go and see that. So as you can see, going through my speech here, I'm like an operator of the platform of OpenShift, but I got a view about what's happening at the project and container level, because then I can relate to that to explain to the application team, hey guys, you may have a problem there, or I have alerts telling me that we have an issue there, and this application may not running anymore. So also you can see in this topology view, this is my underlying infrastructure. Same story, I can double click, then I can get more information about it. So I know exactly where this OpenShift node, so this is an OpenShift node, and this is a hypervisor technology underneath here, and this is a VM or instance where the node is running. So a very nice and very easy way to see what's happening there. So now if we go into more inventory information, so right now I'm looking at the project level. In the next release of CloudForms 4.5 coming very soon here, you can do the topology view at the project level. Say, this is my project, and this is all related objects, container, routes, services that are used, replicas that are used inside this object here. So, and again, this is all my pods, for example. Then I can click on that and get the exact list of the pods that are running there. You have also the list of nodes. So this particular project is split on 2 nodes. So that means the pods are running on multiple nodes here. So if you want to evacuate a node or whatever, it's important information you can relate to. And again, you know exactly how many images are used inside this particular container. So it's always important to understand the images part here. What images are running for this application, where they're coming from, what's happening there. So now if I'm looking at the image point of view, so this is an image which is part of a project. So you can see here, this image is part of this project. I can click, and then we bring me back to the project here. So all this information we are collecting, we make relationship between them. We know exactly how these things are organized. You saw the topology view. And when you browse to every object that we are capturing, every piece of information, you can always go up and down to the different relationships that we have in this environment. In this case, what is very interesting here, you can run what we call an introspection of the image. Then we're going to tell you exactly what are all the packages. In this case, they got 207 packages. All right, and you know the version and you know the release here. You can look in every images one by one to know exactly which version of RPMs has been installed in this particular case. It's very transparent. And to help you, we run at the same time an OpenSCAP scan. And as you can see here, we run the OpenSCAP, and we have one high severity, then this particular image is non-compliant based on the policies that I put in place. I said, if I have at least one high severity, I want to make it non-compliant. And the next step, which is possible, is to stop people using this image in production, which means you cannot start any container anymore from this particular image. We are notifying OpenShift itself. We put a note on this particular image to make sure nobody can run a container from this image. And all this scan and prevention on security aspect, it can be done fully automatically. Every time someone publishes a new image in OpenShift, CloudForms will detect it, and we run a scan, and we may say, hey, we have too many issues there, don't do it. Very important. You may receive image from outside your company that you don't know the content. We can tell you what's happening there. On the monitoring side here, we can monitor the OpenShift cluster itself, we can monitor the nodes, we can monitor the projects, and we can monitor the pods. Then we can show you this type of graphics here. I can zoom in any graphics to get more information. I can go back 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I can go back, clicking on the date in time. I can look what all these guys were performing 2 months ago. It's the kind of information I'm looking for here. And all this information are completely clickable here. And I can just see how much average memory or is available versus the memory is being used here. Same thing on network, CPU, and memory. We do provide now, in the next release, a way to get more metrics information from OpenShift Angular underneath here. Right now, this is what we have out of the box in the current version. So as we collect a lot of information across all the OpenShift, you can, of course, run reports. So we have included in CloudForms reporting capabilities. We have all these reports out of the box here. They can be list reports or graphical reports, but they are customizable. You can create your own reports here. And as you create reports, you can attach this new report in your dashboard. So you can customize a dashboard that is very compelling for you. You can use the default dashboard we are providing, but you can create a customizable dashboard with all the information that you want to monitor as an operator here. Again, we always have reports about history. So every time you run a report, we save it. You can run the same report a month ago, but you can always go back to the previous report and see what was the data you got at that time here. Sometimes it's very important to keep history about what things happen, then you can relate to that. And I'm not talking about auditing, especially in this case here. So, and all these reports can be exported in a CVS format or in a PDF format. And they can be sent to someone if you want for review here. And again, as we have a story about centralization here, management at scale, if you have 5 OpenShift clusters and they are all connected to CloudForms, you can run across the company a report to understand what you are running, what's happening here. And you can run performance report, for example, how much CPU has been consumed by all my projects across all my companies the last 2 months here, being done. So we do offer chargeback. We have inventory, we know what you have, and we have metrics. And then we can assign a rate to your metrics to give a chargeback reports here. Report can be based on project, which makes a lot of sense. We are talking about a project, then an application, and you want to know how much costs the application because they are running maybe on your internal virtual infrastructure, you know the cost here, or they are running on Amazon, so you want to be able to say, hey, this is how much cost this project or this application running for the last 2 months here. But we are providing also an image-based cost. As a company, maybe you purchase an application from an external vendor, and it provides this application as an image that you can run inside your container environment. So we can attach a price to the image. So if 20 projects are using 1 or more times this image, we can give you a cost at the image level. Then you can relate to the application you purchase and how much it's costing to you here. The rates are very flexible. It can be based on tag. It can be based on labels that you have in OpenShift here. And again, you can export it, and you can even email it. We have put a tool in place that customers really love. You can dynamically run a report, a chargeback report, and email it to executives, for example. So you don't have to go and do the job here. The product is doing it for you. Weekly basis, sending an email about the reports on whatever you want here. Chargeback is a common one. Wow. Policy, event, condition, action. So on the right side here, this is an example we talked a little bit earlier. Every time a new incoming container image is discovered, we are going to analyze it. So a container image has been discovered. What do I do about this event? Or run a smart set analysis on the container image. Okay, and then what do you do about this when it's done here? When the container image, compliance check has been run, then I can check if I have high severity from OpenSCAP result. If yes, I can make it as marked as non-compliant, and then I can prevent container image from running from OpenShift, is what I was talking about. The concept behind what we are doing here is what we call event condition action. We are receiving an event. An event is a new image has been discovered. We decide about an action. An action is about perform a smart state analysis in OpenSCAP run. When this compliance check finishes, it's a new event for us. So what do we do about that? You check if you have one high severity. I do. So you mark it as non-compliant. If you don't, you mark it as compliant. Then you can run a report about show me all my images that are not compliant in my environment today or yesterday. Or here, what you should do, in my opinion, send an email to the security team. Bing, hey guys, we just have a new image which has a high severity based on OpenSCAP scanner. You should be aware about that. You can imagine anything you want because the event condition action is very open here. When you receive an event from Kubernetes, you can decide, we have customers today, what they are doing. They receive the event, they can send an email, but they are redirecting this event to another internal system they use here, maybe an ITSM system to be aware about that or to open a case. So we do that with CloudForms very well. CloudForms is very customizable in this case here. So the type of action you can run is very open and very flexible here. All right, oh, I was going up here. Oh, I'm done.
So Loic covered all the great things that we have in the product today. I'm going to cover where we're going, our usual disclaimer, roadmap, forward-looking statements, subject to change. When we started looking back at where we started, CloudForms 4.1, we had to start with the basic. We added, inventory, alerts, metrics, reports, all the basic stuff. We also added chargeback for containers, OpenSCAP for containers, for security scanning, but these were kind of like the basic things. Over the time, we added more and more things. We enhanced mostly what we have, more chargeback. We started codifying, chasing the different entities that we have in OpenShift, new entities introduced, templates in 4.2, persistent volumes in 4.5, and we started codifying CloudForms. Codifying CloudForms means we want to be able to run it, currently it's tech preview, to run it as containers on OpenShift itself instead of on the side in the virtual machine. It's going to make it easier to deploy, easier to consume. Coming CloudForms 4.5 is the more focus on scale, for example. It's something that exists in 4.2. As deployment scale more, we put more emphasis on performance and scale. Some of this is we just need to make sure we work in a more efficient manner. Okay, and that's out of the box in 4.2. In 4.5, it's also things in the UI. As Loic mentioned, the topology view, you can no longer view in a scale on a cluster because there are just too many entities on the view. So we are allowing you to search, to filter, and to view in a single project, for example. There are a lot of tuning to make it easy out of the box. Default roles, you can, I manage containers, I manage OpenShift. Show me the dashboard, the container dashboard as the default view and not the virtualization dashboard, for example. More focus on reports out of the box. The announcement today on automation with Ansible out of the box in CloudForms Automation, so you can now write automation flows in CloudForms with Ansible, also going to empower that. But other than that, we wanted to move to another level. It's a new technology, and we know that with a new technology, there's a learning curve. We wanted to check to see how can we reduce the learning curve for you, the customers, from having to learn on all this, fast-moving technology, and make it easier, from the operations side to manage. So we teamed up with the OpenShift Ops team. The OpenShift Ops team manages OpenShift Online and OpenShift Dedicated. OpenShift Online is this massive cloud SaaS-based service anyone in the world can log in, open projects, use, and it scales, it's massive scale of clusters. OpenShift Dedicated is when a customer wants to buy OpenShift, but instead of deploying and managing on their own on-premise, it's a managed service by Red Hat. And in this case, it's a lot of smaller cluster. So the ops team deals with everything from a lot of small cluster to very few very big clusters. So we came to them to try and understand how did they do this, because what we want to do is we want to ship their expertise out of the box in CloudForm, so you get it and you don't have to have the same ramp up in learning, and you can benefit from their knowledge. Fortunately, because they have to deal with such a scale, they automated everything. So they have a lot of scripts that automate things, and we want to see how can we take all the knowledge they have in those tools, ship it with CloudForm, and visualize it. We found out we need to improve a bit in a few areas, and these are the enhancements in the alerts area, the metrics, and the automation mostly, and troubleshooting, I will say. In the automation area, they automate everything, so we added Ansible modules for CloudForm, so they can also automate the CloudForm deployment. In the alerts, today in CloudForm, alerts are fire and forget. You get an alert on something, email, SNMP trap, beeper, SMS, things like that, but you didn't have what an ops team needs for operational management, which is I log into the system, I get the dashboard, oh, I have alerts right now, I need to handle them. I can drill down to that and see by environment, where do I have, how many alerts, what to do. I obviously want to start with the more severe ones, and then I have full life cycle on the alerts. I can take ownership of an alert, I can write comments on them, pass them over. I can manually resolve the alert, but that's not usually what I want to do. Most of the things, if I automate, I hope that for those alerts, I can auto-resolve them. So alerts now also have auto-resolution. I don't need to care right now about an alert if it's already resolved. I might care about the trend of an event, of an alert that comes and goes often, but that's something for a retrospective of finding out on something flipping. But right now, if I come in to handle alerts, I want to handle those, and auto-resolution is very important. The other thing I have here is a link to basically the standard of operation or a knowledge base of what is this alert about, because I don't know what this alert is about, so there's an explanation, steps of what to do, things like that. Some alerts I need to troubleshoot. And this is where we get into metrics, into logging, into ad hoc administration. Let's start with metrics. The main difference in what we're going to introduce in CloudForm going forward is the work with live metrics and dynamic metrics that we don't keep collecting all the time into CloudForms. We're going to keep collecting aggregates for things like reporting and chargeback. But if you want right now what's going on in a cluster, we can't collect at the scale and the number of metrics that exist there. It just doesn't make sense with the scales we're talking about for things like OpenShift clusters. But we do want to expose from a single place both the aggregates and historical data and the live metrics. So we're introducing in CloudForms the ability to work with live metrics and drilling down into live metrics. One aspect of that is also that the metrics are more dynamic. It used to be that you used to know what is the metric you care about, CPU, network disk, and the world is changing and there are more and more metrics. And the way that ops team work is it might be an entirely new metric, and we don't want to wait for the next version. We want them to be able to collect a new metric or even create a new metric right now. Let's say the Docker daemon has an issue with it, and the latency starts to grow. Maybe they add a new check now in the code, pinging that Docker daemon, writing a new metric off this latency. And then they can write a rule also that if it's more than 2 seconds for 3 times in a row, recycle that Docker daemon. Obviously, it's an issue they're going to work with us on troubleshooting with the OpenShift team on this shouldn't happen. But it's a production system. The main thing is to keep it going, make sure it's working while we're troubleshooting, while we're working on fixing the root cause of the issue. So in this view, we can see all the metrics and search for all the metrics in all the environments that we have, see the latest sample date, latest value, things like that, show trends of them over time, compare different metrics, and compare different metrics for the live metrics. Live and dynamic metrics is one of the main improvements we're going to see in that case. The other thing you usually do, other than looking at the metrics, is usually SSH to the host to see what's going on. Okay? Now, SSHing to the host assumes you know what you're going to do once you're inside. Again, this is a new technology. There's a ramp up to learning all the different command line options. We also integrated Cockpit. Cockpit is the next generation RHEL web admin. Think of it as a GUI for anything you would want to do from a CLI. It's not a management system like CloudForm is, where it stores data in state and collects things. It shows you what currently happens on the system, just if you would write a CLI, but because it's a UI, you don't need to know as much in advance on what are the different options and commands, because it's a user interface that will guide you a bit more to the different options that you can do. So this is also integrated. So I had an alert. I can click on the host, go see the metrics around that host live, and search across different metrics, different environments. I can also click on that host and open a web console to it and start doing things ad hoc in it. Obviously, you can still SSH to the host, and Cockpit actually has a shell embedded in it as well if you don't want to really open that SSH from the side. The other thing you usually do after you SSH is you start grepping for logs, right? And again, much more complex environment. Entities or pods could be on this host, on another host. You're not sure where the problem necessarily is. I have an alert. I can click on the host. I can go see the logs from the Red Hat Common Logging, Elasticsearch based, with a Kibana user interface that allow me to search and go through the logs. I can start from the alert, go to the host, look at the logs. I can start searching through the logs, but maybe it's not on the host, it relates to the pod or to the route or to the service. I can search through all the logs of all hosts, all entities, everything that happened in the infrastructure. So before we switch to Federico for a live demo of those things, just to recap, CloudForm gives you today view across the layers of your infrastructure, from the underlying infrastructure, going from the bare metal virtualization, OpenShift clustering, tech preview of the JBoss middleware on top of that, some storage and network aspects as well. And our goal is to take all the expertise and the knowledge that our OpenShift ops team has from managing OpenShift at scale and give it to you out of the box in the coming version.
So we will be still in tech preview in 4.5 because we still have a lot of work to do here, and I can explain that in details. And it's going to be the next release here, end of this year.
Okay, great. So we saw a lot of features, both in the existing product and the roadmap. What I'm going to show you right now in this live demo system, so finger crossed, is a mix of both the current status and some of the new features. So it's a alpha build, so some things might be a little bit unfinished. Please bear with that. So we are going to log in with a specific user that we created for container management. So in CloudForm, you can create users that are dedicated to specific function, and this one was created for OpenShift containers management. So we see exactly what Loic introduced earlier with the dashboard. So you log in, you get into the most interesting part for you, which is the providers of OpenShift. You see that there is only one. This is a small demo system that we have in our labs, just a few nodes for us to look at. We have at the top all the entities. As you see, we have the aggregation. Well, no, there's only one provider, but this would be the aggregation of the CPU and the memory, how much you have and how much you use, with a history over 30 days. The node utilization at the bottom with the heat map. We just have one node that is a little bit under stress for memory. Network utilization over the 30 days and so on. The image trend and the pods. There's nothing much going on other than maybe a few scans of the images, as Loic mentioned earlier. Number of nodes, all the important things that you should have under control as soon as you log in. So what it is interesting is what Loic was mentioning earlier, how you can deep dive into the, from the top high-level entity down to the bits that are satisfying those entities, such as projects, right? The most broad categorization of resources that are running is projects, right? Where you keep your applications running. So here is the list of all the projects. You can go into one of the projects. There's not much data about the project because the project is just a container for the other entities. So then you can go more into one of these resources, such as the pods that are part of that project. And well, you see also the other resources, but the pods are those running entities that you might be interested in looking at, top to bottom. You have all the pods that are running in that project. We see that this is an application that has a database. We see Postgres here, right? So we can continue deep diving into these relationships, right? We get into the Postgres pod with all the information about that type of pod, how many containers, and so forth. And we mentioned that images are an important part of for you to identify what is actually running in your system. So as we see here, between all the other information about the pod that is actually realizing this Postgres instance, we do have a container image, so we can go down into that one. And of course, we present a list. There's only one because now there's in this pod there is only a single container, but it could be multiple images. And we can go even further down and see what are the packages and if there are any vulnerability. So as you see here, we collect lots of information about the images because it's one of the most important parts of your system. We collect the information from many different parts, and with the smart state analysis and OpenSCAP, we get the list of the packages. We can go into that one. So crack open the image and see exactly what are the packages, the version, and so forth. We can go back and look at the OpenSCAP policies that were evaluated and their results. And of course, you don't have to look at all these entities in the UI. We are doing it now because it's a demo, and it's nice to see on the screen what it is going on. But at the scale that you will be managing these, you definitely want to do reports. So all these data that we see here in a nice UI, they're real objects that you can act upon with reports, policies, and so forth. OK, so we were looking at the pod earlier, and we said, OK, so it's interesting to go and see what is the content of the image. That's one direction that you can go. The other direction that is interesting is to actually see where that pod is running. And for that, let's go back to the pod real quick. And for that, we'll go in the other direction, down to the node. OK, and from the node, we can jump into the infrastructure. You probably have seen maybe in the past, but we can also cross-link from the OpenShift nodes down to the underlying instance of, in this case, OpenStack. OK, great. So let's go back to the provider, because I want to show you some of the features that were mentioned that we are currently improving. So this is different from the dashboard that you saw earlier, right? Here, this is the per provider dashboard. So it is the same element, but it is the slice of the single provider that we're looking at. From here, of course, we have different type of visualization. One is the traditional one, where you have all the information in tables, or the topology that was mentioned earlier, right? And I'll show you in a live system how you can select and decide which resources you want to see, and actually maybe even go down and see why this one is in particular is red and has something failed, right? So from here you can both filter if you want, right? If that's what you want to do, or of course you can go and go into these entities with a double click. From the dashboard of the project, then we can, of the provider, we can actually then go and see a couple of those features that were mentioned that are on the roadmap. One is the external logging with the Kibana. Let's see if it's quick enough to get us to the logs. Yes. So this will take us directly to the Kibana instance of that cluster. And this is the typical discovery part where you see all the logs and then you can filter. Of course, if there are some dashboard defined, then you can jump to those dashboards that will give you a nice presentation of how the logs are distributed over the various nodes and so forth. So let's go back to our, to the dashboard. We also had ad hoc metrics mentioned, so that is something that I would spend. And I think I have a problem in my browser here. Generally, let's see if it's solved by now. No, that's so again, this is alpha, so please bear with that. You can select, you can list all the metrics that are not predefined, right? And you can do graphs for those. Okay, let's see if we are running out of time, but I wanted to show you one last part, which is the dashboard. The dashboard was mentioned as the place where you can customize and show your reports, right? So there are several reports that we give you out of the box, and you can compose your own dashboard. So this is fully custom built by the maintainer of this CloudForms instance, and you can have pie charts and so forth. You can, as mentioned, put them in full screen to see more details, right? If I were going into full screen, we would see more data, but I'm not going to do it right now for time. Download PDF. Again, you can download it as PDF. All these data, again, are the reports that you can build out of those entities that we saw, and that are real objects that you can manage in the report, essentially. You can build multiple dashboards, right, with different views. For example, here we can switch to the project dashboard that has different type of reports. And I just want to mention as last item, of course, the reports that are out of the box defined here. And you can find them and compose your own dashboard out of that. Thank you.